Okay. All right. So have a pen and paper today, or at least have your notebook, your Google Pad, or wherever it is you keep notes, because we are going to need to take notes today. And okay, hold on. I'm going to share where we are. Oh my goodness. Okay. Our last person is in now. Okay. Good, good. All right, everybody's here. Um, so again, we are in Canvas. We are in the section for cells and cell organelle lesson. We're going to watch a short video, and then we're going to look at the organelles. We tried to look at the site on last class, and it was blocked. We got it unblocked. So I'll tell you what to do with that shortly. But let's go ahead and watch the video first, and then I'll tell you what to do with the rest of this page, and we'll go to Cells Alive, and I'll tell you how to handle that. All right, so let's watch this.
All living things are made up of one or more cells. Trees, elephants, moss, a paramecium. Sometimes a cell is the organism. Single-celled or unicellular organisms do many of the same things as multicellular organisms. They grow, eat, excrete, and reproduce. There are two basic types of cells. Those without nuclei are called prokaryotes. Their DNA floats freely through the cytoplasm. Eukaryotes, a cell nucleus protects the DNA. Single-celled organisms can move in different ways. This parenchyma, 1/50,000th of a millimeter long, has an especially thick flagellum that pushes it forward. Other organisms have cilia, hair-like structures that are effective motors for moving through water, for walking over surfaces, for bringing food toward the cell. An amoeba moves by reaching out its flexible membrane and forming a pseudopod, or false foot. The cytoplasm of the amoeba streams into the pseudopod, and the rest of the cell follows. Within the single cell are organelles that carry out life processes such as digestion, respiration, and water regulation. In this paramecium, the contractile vacuole collects excess water. Then, when it's full, it suddenly contracts and pumps water out. Here, an amoeba engulfs a green euglena. It forms a food vacuole where it will digest its prey and pass on nutrients to the rest of the cell. The cell membrane controls the flow of nutrients, oxygen, and waste into and out of the cell. Found in almost all eukaryotic cells, mitochondria are organelles that break down food and release energy. These long cells with green chloroplasts are euglenas. Their red eye spots help them find sunlight, and as long as there is light, they obtain energy through photosynthesis, just like plants. A species must be able to reproduce, to pass on its genes to the next generation. When a single-celled organism reproduces, it duplicates its DNA, with each daughter cell receiving a complete copy of the parent's genes.
Okay, so that's kind of a mini preview of what cells, microscopic cells look like and what organelles look like. So what we're going to do is do a further look at organelles. Now they have a, wait a minute, okay, they have a section here, but instead of doing this section here, because it only just gives you definitions, this is where we're going to look at our cells alive. So let's see, if you scroll, just go back a slide. I embedded it in the module. All right, so if you go back one in your module, you should come to this section. If you click on the link, it should take you here. This is where we got stuck the last time, but we should be all good today. All right, so they have both plants and animal cells. So when you click on the animal cell, and then you might want to take the, turn the sound off because that's going to ding every time you do something. Okay. Notice if you just take your mouse and you run around the cell, the different parts light up and it'll tell you what it is. But what I need you to do, one on your notes, is write animal cell as your heading. And I want you to just go through each one of these. And this is kind of doing what the Canvas page was doing, except it's giving you a picture of what it looks like. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to, let me kind of pop back here for a minute. At the end of the day, and then I'm coming back to Canvas, you're going to eventually get a picture. Come on, of a cell that looks like this. And you see how this one just has question marks? And they want you, and it also will tell you what it is, but you're going to get a picture where it's not going to pop up. You have to be able to look at this picture and identify what these structures are. Okay, so cells alive, I want you to click on the word, and then when you click on the word, it highlights the structure, but then click on it, and it also brings up a definition. So for each organelle, and these are organelles, which are the little parts inside the cell, I want you to summarize. You don't have to write all of this. What you said need to say for this one is it is a double membrane structure which surrounds the cytosol, and it contains the DNA. So summarize this. Don't write that whole paragraph. The important parts is all you need. Okay. So, and then it also gives you another picture. When you're finished with that, click back to the diagram, go to the next word. Now, you can just simply keep going, but if you just keep clicking on the words, it's not going to show you where it is in the cell. So I prefer that you click back to the diagram, look at the word, see where it is, and then click on it so that you can go to your definition. All right, so I want you to go through all of these now. When you get to vacuole, there's a vacuole for the animal cell, but then when you get to cell wall, it's going to tell you that animals don't have that. And you want to save that for your next heading, which will be plant cell. And it's also going to tell you the same thing for chloroplast. Okay, so you're going to have all of these structures in an animal cell, but you're also going to have all of these structures in a plant cell. So when you get to finish doing all of the animal cells, then you want to do a heading that says plant cells. And the only thing you want to do for the plant cell is do the vacuole, because the vacuole is different. Plants, cell wall, and the chloroplast. Those are the only three things that you're going to write under the heading of plant cell. Everything else is going to be the same. It's going to have the same function. It's in both cells. Okay, so I don't need you to rewrite all of that again. All right, so are we clear? We're going to see when you do this, and it's helpful to go ahead and go through like this as well so that you see it in the plant cell, but you don't have to write it. Okay, write it once for the animal cell. The function will remain the same. It's just that you need to know that all of these parts are also inside the plant cell as well as the animal cell. It's particular that you notice that the cell membrane is in, lined up with the cell wall. So this is why you do need to look at it and go around and see the location of things. Again, the difference with the vacuole in a plant cell and in animal cells, vacuoles are much larger in plant cells because they have a slightly different function in that they also add support. They create a water pressure, it's called turgor pressure, and they keep the cell wall sturdy. So when you notice that plants wilt and fall over when they don't have enough water, it's because that vacuole contracts. And when the vacuole contracts, cell wall kind of collapses. You give it some water, the vacuole fills up and the plant comes back to life. Okay, so that vacuole is important for structure. So it has a slightly different meaning for plants. So when you do animal cells, write the first one. When you do it for plant cells, write the second paragraph. Okay, or take it from the second paragraph, summarize. Okay, we good? All right. So if you finish that before class is up, come back to um, this page and read this part over. This is a theory that you need to be familiar with, and then test yourself. Kind of go through and look at the parts and use this as a can I recognize what everything is? Okay. And again, it will tell you what it is when you get there, but use this as a test to see that you understand what the cell looks like, because you will see this again, and then read this over. Okay. So, all right. So you're taking notes on all of organelle parts, what they do, and that's going to be important to what they do, because later on when we start actually talking about how the cell functions, we will talk about this is the structure that does this. This is the structure that makes proteins. This is the one that does digestion. So we are going to go through all of these parts. All right, so you're not just taking notes for taking notes' sake. All right. All right, everybody good? All right, I'm going to stop sharing so I can do attendance, and then I'll pop back to sharing.
But we just thank God for the service that we just completed.
Sorry about that. So I want to go. we do this way before share? Why does it do that? Hmm. All right, has everybody had a chance to get all of the vocabulary done? Just kind of give me a thumbs up if you're done. Okay, got almost everybody. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just quickly go through each of these with you. So again, in an overview, we are looking at the cell as the basic unit of structure and function for all living things, which means that in addition to being the building blocks, the reason why the whole organism functions well is because the individual cells function well. And they function well because they have little parts called organelles that do all the functioning. So what you've been doing is going through and looking at what is the function of all of these organelles. And then we're going to put them all together in terms of looking at they have to carry out digestion, they have to carry out respiration, they have to dispose of waste. They have to carry out reproduction. All of these life activities that we talked about at the beginning of the course, that all living things must do, it has to happen on the cellular level. So that is why we have to look at what parts of the cell are responsible for doing all these things. All right. So if we compare plant cells and animal cells together. Again, the basic thing that is the difference between them is that plant cells don't have centrioles. And when we get to talking about cell reproduction, that will become important because centrioles are important as far as duplicating the DNA and the chromosomes and all of that. So they're important there. But notice that they're not present in plant cells, but they are present in animal cells. So that just means that in plant cells, they carry out reproduction in a slightly different way, but just the same, plant cells make new plant cells. Okay. There is a cell wall in a plant cell. There is no cell wall in an animal cell. There are no chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are the structures, as you can see, that make the plant look green. So most animal cells are not green. So because they don't contain the structure for chloroplasts. This is where, and that's an important structure because that's where photosynthesis takes place. Okay, so again, the functions of each organelle are extremely important to the life processes. All right, so we're going to take the animal cells part by part. We looked at the cell membrane. Now yours are probably not in the same order as this PowerPoint. I don't know why they didn't generate the PowerPoint because this was the PowerPoint from Cells Alive. So I don't know why they didn't put it in the same order as the way they listed the parts, but I guess they're going to start from the inside out. So starting from the inside out, we have our cell membrane. You have an enlarged picture down here at the corner that shows the structure. So we've talked about this a couple of times, the bilipid layer, meaning that you have these little phospholipid molecules and you've got two of them and they kind of face each other in opposite directions. You have a hydrophilic end of it, which are the little round portions. And then each one of those has a tail, which is the hydrophobic. Hydrophilic attracts water, and we want water to be able to get into the cell, and the middle layer is hydrophobic. Okay, hydrophilic, water-loving, hydrophobic, not liking the water so much. So their job, again, is to allow things to, and this is calling it communicate. It communicates because it's got some sensory parts to it as well, but it also allows things to go in and out of the cell. I gave you the example of a screen. So think of all those little round things being able to allow stuff to pass through. So oxygen can pass through, water can pass through, little microscopic things can just pass through the cell membrane, and its job is as not only a barrier, but it's a regulator. It allows what it needs to flow in, and it keeps what it doesn't need to stay out. Okay? So that's the job of the cell membrane, in addition to holding all the contents in place. Okay? All right. The cystol is the watery, they call it a watery soup. It's like a gel-like substance that is, all the organelles are floating around in it. So again, we use the term down here at the bottom, it says we use the term cytoplasm in general, but cytoplasm means that it is the soup and the organelles all included. Okay, so that's the only difference between it. If you're talking about the cystol, you're just talking about the liquid part. If you're talking about cytoplasm, you're talking about all of the contents within the cystol. Okay, so that's important. All the organelles are floating around, safely buffered within the cell. All right. The nucleus. The nucleus is the most important structure because it is the boss. It is the headquarters for the DNA, and your DNA is like your blueprints for everything that needs to happen. Another way you can say this is the foreman, and it has all of the rules and regulations as to what needs to be built, how it needs to be built, when it needs to be built. That is happening in the nucleus. So the DNA, it contains chromatin material. It's located, DNA is only located in the nucleus. It's nowhere else in the cell, and it never leaves the cell. So when we start talking later on about cell reproduction, we're going to talk about how the DNA is going to make a copy of itself. It's going to take those instructions on what to do, when to do, how to do it, and it's going to pass it on to its footman, the RNA. The RNA leaves the nucleus and then goes where it needs to go, and then it carries out the instructions. DNA never, ever leaves the nucleus. So the function of the nucleus is to hold the DNA. All right, then it had the nucleolus. It makes the ribosomes. So it's got a special job to make this one structure. And that one structure is important because that's where all the proteins are made. So its job is to carry the DNA for making that structure. And then once that structure is made, it goes to, and it tells you it's going to the endoplasmic reticulum, which is these folded structures on the outside of the nucleus. It goes there, and all those little round dots, because ribosomes are little round dots, they sit on the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, and then that's where protein synthesis is going to occur. So later on, we'll look more closely at the structure of the ribosome and how it's a little factory to make the proteins. All of these can be considered little factories because they do something to make something. Except the endoplasmic reticulum, which is affectionately abbreviated the ER. It is just a system of canals. So it looks like what it is. It's kind of like a maze, and it's a passageway. So, but it is made of a membrane. Okay, and the ribosomes are sitting on the membrane. Now, there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum. There's smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough. So some of the endoplasmic reticulum does not have ribosomes on it. So if it doesn't have it, it's called smooth ER. If it does have ribosomes on it, they're rough ER. So that's just the difference between the two of those. And again, the ribosomes are going to be where the proteins are made. Okay. Again, the little dots are the ribosomes. And again, there are some that are free floating. So if you see some of these little dots just floating around the cell, they are the site for RNA translation. And again, when we talk about synthesis later on, we'll get into talking about exactly what all of that means. Right now, you just need to know that the ribosomes are where the proteins are made. All right, again, there's smooth ER, and that just means it doesn't have any ribosomes on it. All right, the Golgi body. Golgi body kind of look like ER, but they're a little bit different. But they also are a stacked set of vessels, and their function is for packaging and delivering enzymes and hormones. Now, you know you have enzymes, you have digestive enzymes and things that go on in your stomach. Inside the cell, again, they need to have some digestion going on. So the person that's going to make the enzymes is the Golgi body. They have specific jobs for making lysosomes. We're going to talk about what each of those functions are as far as supporting the cell, killing germs, fending off things that don't belong there, and secreting the kind of hormones it needs to carry out specific activities. So that's what's going on in the Golgi app. Sometimes you see it's Golgi apparatus or Golgi body, depending on which book you're looking at, but they're the same. All right, lysosomes. Lysosomes, sometimes they call them suicide sacs because they contain the little enzymes that, so again, the Golgi body made the lysosomes, and then the lysosomes are release things to kill the bacteria, to digest germs. They are the thing that protects the cell. And one of the reasons they sometimes call it a suicide sac, if the cell is not functioning properly, it will release its enzymes into the cell and digest the cell. Okay, so it's got a regulatory function as well as protecting. All right, parasomes. Again, were created in the Golgi apparatus, and they also have enzymes that protect from excessive oxidative products made in the cell. So you make too much stuff that's not good for you, the parasomes are going to take care of that. Okay. All right. And again, this was also really made by the Golgi apparatus. And I'm having a good time pronouncing these words this morning. Secretory vessels they have cellular secretions, and once they're formed, they transfer to the cell surface where they release the contents to the interior. All right, so if you see this little one, and in the video you watched at the beginning kind of showed this, some of these vessels simply go over to the edge of the cell membrane, become part of the membrane, and then they open up. So whatever's inside, they spit it out. Okay, so that's how things that are inside the cell get outside the cell, waste products and things of that nature. They come to the cell membrane, attach, and then open up, and then they close back, and then they gravitate back into the cell. So anything that the cell doesn't want, it spits it out, and that's how they do it. All right, vacuoles. They contain in an animal cell. They are small. And that's an important difference. They are small in animal cells, and their job is to regulate digestion and release cellular waste. Okay, so again, they're going to do the same thing that little pocket is. They showed you in the video where it can gravitate to the cell membrane. If there's something outside that the cell wants, while it's at the cell membrane, it opens up, forms a little pocket around the object, and then it closes, and then it moves back in. And we're going to have a word for that too. It engulfs it. and then it pulls back into the cell. Once it's digested and it collects waste and things it doesn't want, it does the same thing. It moves over to the cell membrane. It'll open up, spit out what it doesn't want, and close back up and go back to doing its job again. All right, so in animal cells, vacuoles are small. Cytoskeleton. Cells don't have bones like we have bones, but they do have fibers that kind of give support to the cell so it's not collapsing on itself. Okay. And they become important during cell reproduction. All right, centrosome. Again, those become important during cell reproduction. They're going to form spindle fibers and centrioles. When we start talking about how the DNA is made, we're going to be talking about these some more. And I simply downloaded this PowerPoint from the website. So if you want a copy of this PowerPoint, you can download it from there as well. All right. The centrioles are part of the cytoskeleton. And again, they're going to be arranged. They're going to become important during the reproduction of the DNA. And most of these, you just need to be able to recognize them for now. This one, you need to not only recognize, you need to know what its function is. So mitochondria are extremely important for both plants and animal cells. This is where the energy is made. So this is sometimes abbreviated the energy factory. So proteins, the ribosomes are made in the protein factory. This is the energy factory. This is where respiration occurs. And then during respiration, you make these energy molecules called ATP. But it all occurs in the mitochondria. So some cells have a lot of mitochondria depending on what their job is. And some cells have a few mitochondria, but they're going to have mitochondria because it's important for respiration. Okay. All righty. I'm going to stop there because we've got about 2 minutes left to class. The only other thing, again, when you're looking at the plant cell, and maybe I can look at that real quick. Plant cell, again, is going to be the same thing. I can look at it real quick. So that when we meet on Wednesday, tomorrow, we'll just go, we're going to have a little quiz on cell function. So again, so if you go through this, notice they have all the cell parts. And we want to get to vacuole. Just going to pull this one up. All right, so vacuoles, they are large. That's the other difference. In animal cells, they're small, and basically in animal cells, they function for digestion. In vacuoles, they also store nutrients and waste, but they prevent the cell, this one down here at the bottom, prevent the cell from wilting through turgor pressure. So we're going to talk about, tomorrow we'll talk about what is turgor pressure and some of these other words that help the cell stay supported. All right, and I'm going to stop talking because it's time to go. Okay. All right, so hopefully you got all of those. Again, practice looking at all the parts on that page that we have, and I'll see you tomorrow.